Okay, our next question is, how do true believers get stronger at hope? Because it's one of the big three. You know, if you said to a group of people, what's the most important thing in the Bible? First thing Chester would say is love, right? One of the descriptions of God himself is God is love, right? Jesus said, greater love has no man than he lay down his life for his friends. So it is all about love, but Paul said these three are the three big ones. And too often we focus on love, we focus on faith, and we're not quite sure what to do with hope. Because the way we use hope is wishful a lot of times. I hope I win the lottery. Oh, did you buy a ticket? No, but I hope I win the lottery. There's no hope whatsoever you're going to win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. You know? So you've got to have some foundation under your hope, what you're hoping for. Hebrews 3:6, that Christ as a son over his own household, whose house we are. You've got to read this really slowly. So Christ is the son over his own household, whose household we are. We are the household. We are the family of Jesus Christ. If there's that little word if, we hold fast the confidence, the faith, the trust, the belief, and the rejoicing of hope firm until the end. So we know you have to be faithful to the end, till your last breath, till our end. Chester has ended. You know, many of the other people we've loved have ended. Their lives have ended. They died faithful. Were they rejoicing in hope? We know Chester was rejoicing in hope. When he comes to wakes up again in the kingdom, he is not going to have sugar diabetes. Hallelujah! Won't that be terrific? Right? Helen won't be in a wheelchair. Right? It's going to be a totally new world. But the rejoicing of hope firm to the end. So we need to ask ourselves, am I holding fast the rejoicing of hope until my last breath? Now, some people meticulously plan for their retirement. They might even buy their retirement home at the lake, right, and begin using it on weekends, which my stepfather did. He bought a retirement home near the beach. He loved fishing, and so on weekends he'd leave the city and take the family up to the weekender, the retirement home, and we'd spend the weekend on the beach or fishing or whatever. And then when he totally retired, he sold the house in the city and he moved to his retirement home. Very meticulously planned out. So they make every effort to ensure that everything they might need is prepared for ahead of time. They save money, they get whatever vehicles they need, they get the boat they want to have. They make all those plans to make sure that their retirement turns out the way they want it to. Now Paul uses this same kind of thinking in Romans 8:23. He says, we ourselves, we true believers, we groan within ourselves. How many of you groan when you watch the news on TV? Anybody here? I mean, I'm watching too much news. It's bad for my health. And every now and then, I find myself sitting in a chair grieving. What happened to the fabulous America that the founding fathers put together? What happened? You know? Anyhow, so I just got to watch less news. Right? It's not easy to do. But anyhow, he says, we groan within ourselves, eagerly awaiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. Well, Chester has passed. He's at rest, he's at peace, he's unconscious, he's in the grave, his spirit went back to God, right? But until that day he died, he was eagerly awaiting the redemption of his body, getting a brand new angelic heavenly being body, right? And so this eagerly awaiting the redemption of our body, retirement people are eagerly awaiting the last day. I know a guy up in the Russellville church, and he's got like 16 months before he retires. and he's been building a swimming pool at his new house, and he's making plans for his retirement, right? And so we need to be eagerly awaiting the day that we stop being fleshly human beings. And much as we don't like to think about it, it's going to happen. It happens to people. Everybody gets old and dies, or has an accident and dies. Okay, Paul calls this eagerly waiting. He calls it hope. The eagerly rejoicing of hope. Romans 8:24, for we are saved in this hope. So now we've got love which we understand and faith which we understand, but he's saying we're saved in this hope. But he says now hope that is seen is not hope. For why do you still hope for something that you now see? It hasn't yet come. So I'll give you an example. Zechariah 14:4 says, in that day, the return of Christ, his feet, Jesus' feet. And I love this because if you go back to Acts, the disciples are all standing around in a circle and Jesus is in the middle and he's talking to them. And then he starts to lift off. You know, and they're all going, yeah, Jesus, oh yeah, Jesus. And then they go silent. It's like, uh-oh, he's lifting off. Now, when he gets up to about 15 feet, what are they looking at? His feet, right? I don't know whether his sandals went with him or not. But when he's 15 feet up, they're looking, yeah, they're going, there's Jesus, there's Jesus, there's Jesus. They're looking at the bottom of his feet. And the two angels appear once he's gone up into the clouds and disappear, and they're all still standing there with their mouth open going, and the angels go, kind of like Dr. Phil, hey, what are you doing standing there looking up into the clouds? He said, this Jesus will come again in the same way you saw him go up. He'll come down, and when those feet hit the ground, where is it going to hit? Where? Mount of Olives, right? Because this verse says his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem, just across the way on the east, and the Mount of Olives will split in two. Now, I hope for that day. I am eagerly awaiting that day. I can almost see that day in my mind, but it hasn't happened yet. Now, God willing, I'll be there. You'll be there, right? And we'll meet Christ in the clouds, and then we'll go with him to where he's going, which is the Mount of Olives. And instead of watching his feet from below, we'll probably be up above him watching him go down. And when his feet touch the Mount of Olives, what's that going to be like? Is it going to be real quiet? Or will it be thunderous? Will there be some lightning? Wouldn't that be good? That'd be good, right? And the mountain splits right down through the middle and starts moving. Now, I am eagerly awaiting that day. It hasn't happened yet, but a half an hour after it happens, there's no point in hoping for it anymore. It already happened, right? So when we get our new spirit being bodies, there's no point in hoping, boy, I hope I get my spirit being body. It's like, oh, I already got it. You stop hoping, right? So it's what you do until you get it. So many of us believe that Jesus absolutely will do what he promised to do in Scripture. So we need to be reading his promises. If you overcome, here's the promise, you will have it. You can hope for it. You can eagerly hope for it until it happens. Once it happens, you don't have to hope for it anymore. So we are hoping towards this, but when it happens, we'll stop hoping because it will be complete. It'll be finished. And so we'll have to find something else to hope for. Right? And it says that some of the true believers will be given 5 cities. And some of them will be given 10 cities. And will be kings and priests. When I first read that 10 cities, I went, ugh! I don't want 10 cities full of people. People are nasty. It's like, ugh. They keep coming to me like Moses. Remember Moses? He went to God and he said, I can't stand it. These are not my children. They're coming to me with all their problems and they're stiff-necked Israelites and they're a pain in the neck. And God said, now, I'll give you some help. Anyhow, he got 70 elders to help him. So our daily hoping for future promises gets us energized, so we're eagerly awaiting and we're moving forward with eagerness. Right? Faith is you believe what it says. But you can believe what it says and you can put that on a shelf. You need the hope that all his promises are coming true. You put the faith and the hope together, and that builds energy like an engine, right? And then you get excited about learning to love people. How many of you think it's easy to love ugly neighbors, annoying neighbors? How many? There's no hands going up, right? An annoying neighbor is tough to love. But should we love them? Because God says we should love them. And when we get our spirit being body, and the neighbor, no quite telling where the neighbor might be. The neighbor might die and then he'll come up in the second resurrection. Or the neighbor might live through the tribulation and he might be in your city. Right? You say, oh, hi neighbor. Listen, you were pretty ugly to me when I was a human, but things are different now. I'm going to help you here. Do the right thing, right? Okay, so he says in Romans 8:25, but if we hope for what we do see, then we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. And it's like perseverance. What's that? Well, the Greek there is cheerful, hopeful endurance, or constancy, or never turning away. Some here are eagerly waiting to drive to San Antonio. Is anybody here that's eagerly awaiting driving to San Antonio? I heard about that last night, see? Now they're hoping to drive towards San Antonio. And the car needs to keep running. And they need to have money for gas. And they need to have a plan which way they're going. So they're preparing, they're energized, they're making preparations for actually getting there. Once they get to San Antonio, will they still be hoping to go to San Antonio? It'll be over, because they'll have arrived. Then they'll probably be hoping to come home. At least I hope they will, right? Okay, so a powerful tool for being saved is to build our hope stronger and stronger each day. Now, how can we do this? How does one build their hope stronger day by day? Hope is built on promises. So if we create our own personal promise list in Scripture, all right? Now, at first when I heard that some servants would get 10 cities, I hoped that I wouldn't get 10 cities, right? But now I've learned a lot, and if God wants to give me one city full of people, hopefully Australians, but it could be anybody, right? Because I understand the Australians a little better, right? Then I'm happy. If he says one city, I'll be, oh, that's great, because I love to help teach and help people learn. So we create this promise list, we read from it each day. Now, even if it's only 30 seconds a day, how many of you could spare 30 seconds a day? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, come on, all of you could spare 30 seconds a day. So if you started creating your own list, your hope list, your promise list, that you know, okay, one of my hopes is I want to be there seeing Jesus' feet touch the Mount of Olives, right? And that's kind of written in my head. So, you know, I could write that on a piece of paper, but it's already written in my head. But when you find another promise, like sitting with Jesus on his throne, right? Now, it's like a whole bunch of you will be sitting there with him, and me too. It'll be kind of crowded. But in my mind, I just picture me and him. Right? And in your mind, you can picture just you and him. Right? And it's not so much a physical throne, it's a spiritual throne. So it's probably way, way different and bigger than a physical throne. So, but that's another one of my hope promise list, right? And as we read from that, even if you only read 30 seconds or a minute each day, you know, if you've got 20 on your list, you read the first 5. And then you drive off to work, and they're still floating around the back of your head. And you say, yeah, I'm hoping towards the promise, the fulfillment of that promise. So it should be triggering in our mind a rejoicing of hope, which keeps us moving forward to the finish line, which is whenever we stop breathing. And Jesus told 2,000 years worth of true believers, you're not going to know the day or the hour. Most people apply that to the tribulation and the coming of Christ. But the day you die, you go unconscious, you're dead in the grave, and a split second later, you don't know how much time has passed, but you come alive and you're conscious again, and guess who you're looking at? Who are you looking at?
Right.
Jesus Christ. Right? So when he said no man knows the day nor the hour, you don't know when you're going to die. You know, very few people, right? The doctor might say, well, you got 3 months to live. You could get a calendar, a mark on 3 months, and you might still be there 6 months later. And you go, hey, doctor, what happened here? You don't know when it's going to happen. It can happen early, it can happen late, it can happen suddenly. You're in a car crash on the road, you know, it happens in an instant, and you didn't know it was going to be today, right? But it keeps you rejoicing in hope until your last breath. Hebrews 3:6. But Christ is a son over his own house, we read this earlier, whose house if we are, if we hold fast like an anchor of the soul, the being, your person, all of who you are. If we hold fast, right? I'm holding fast to this, and I didn't bring a steel one because I'd drop it on my toe, you know, and then I'd have to go to the hospital and get my toe repaired, right? So I brought this one, but I'm holding fast to this anchor of the soul. If we hold fast to the confidence and rejoicing of hope, we won't be turning away. We won't. Now, if somebody came along, if you just had a rope to a good anchor on your boat, and there's a storm coming, and you put the anchor over the side on the end of the rope, and then an enemy came along when you left, and they cut the rope. Now, when you come back, where's your boat? It's gone. It's drifted away. Where's your anchor? Who wants the anchor without the boat? Right? So he's saying it's to be an anchor of your soul. Okay? If we hold fast the confidence and rejoicing of hope until the end, firm like an anchor chain. Right? In Hebrews 6:11, the writer desires for each one of us this thing. We desire, Hebrews 6:11, we desire that each one of you, I love this because when he wrote it that way, this applies to millions and millions, probably billions of people who read this over the last 2,000 years. We desire that you, if you're the reader, that's you, right? Show the same diligence. I looked up the Greek there. Earnest carefulness. The same diligence, same earnest carefulness to the full assurance, meaning entire confidence. So, in the old days, when you took your money down to the bank, you gave it to the bank teller, big bank building with a big steel vault with a really complicated thing on the front of it. You went, I'm confident that my money is still in the bank, unless the bank robbers come along. But then the government said, doesn't matter if the bank robbers come along. Whatever the bank robbers take, we, the government, will make sure you still got your money, right? Then the computer theft came along. And your money might be in the bank, but somebody stole your identity and they transferred your money out of the bank to their bank. You know, so, but in the old days we had confidence if we put the money in the bank, it would still be in the bank when we wanted it, right? Okay. He says, we desire that every one of you show the same diligence or earnest carefulness to the full assurance, entire confidence of hope and to the end. Now, with the bank and with humans and with computers, that's this world we live in. God's promises are outside of this world. God is the creator and the controller of the whole universe. And we just think of this physical universe and we say, man, that is big. That is big, right? But how big is the spiritual universe? We don't even know what that is. But there's billions of angels in the spiritual universe, right? So it's big. It is big. Okay. So the why of verse 11 is shown in verse 12. It says, that you do not become sluggish. And I saw that word and I said, oh, no. When I wake up in the morning, I'm sluggish. It's like, I've become sluggish. And then I thought, I've got to look up the Greek on this, right? Okay, so sluggish means lazy. Okay, when I get up in the morning, I'm not lazy because I'm really eager to have a cup of coffee. So laziness goes out the window, and it's like I'm staring at the ceiling and I'm going, oh, it'd be really good to have a cup of coffee. So I'm not lazy. I may be sluggish, but I'm not lazy, right? And then the definition goes on to say, stupid. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not stupid when I wake up, you know. Okay, but and then it says dull or slothful. Now, all of this applies to spiritual thinking, not so much to physical thinking. I bet you don't want to be sluggish and dull and lazy and stupid physically, but you sure don't want to be that spiritually. So he says, so, you know, be excited about hoping until the end so that you do not become sluggish, but that you imitate those who are the great people in the Bible that we need to be imitating. Anybody give me a name? David. Hey, my favorite. Yeah, obviously Jesus, right? Perfect Jesus. But I can never be a perfect Ian, and David wasn't a perfect David. But David was a man after God's own heart, and I try to read some Psalms every single day. Because if David was a man after God's own heart, and these are his prayers written down and set to music, and this is what he was thinking, talking to God, that's kind of the thinking I want to have talking to God, you know. So we imitate those who through faith and patience, and I looked up the word patience. How many of you are really good at being patient? There are no hands going up. Wow. And I only put mine up to sort of get you going, right? I'm not patient either. You know, you drive into a McDonald's and you order it, and then they tell you to wait for 20 minutes. I don't think so, right? How long will you wait at a McDonald's window? Oh, you probably don't even go to McDonald's anymore. My kids demanded that we went to McDonald's in the early days. Okay, I looked up the word patience in the Greek, and it said this word. I've got it in the notes. It says longanimity. And I looked at it again, longanimity. And I said, I don't know what that is. What's a longanimity, right? But then it said, that is forbearance. Okay, so that's, you know, that's like, how do we say that in English? American English, sorry. Australian American English. How do we say forbearance? What's another way of saying that? What? Enduring, okay. If you're in a marathon race for 26 miles, right, and you're down to the 25-mile mark, you got 1 mile to go, and you just want to quit. You want to just go off on the side and lay on the grass. Oh, right? And you make your body go 1 more mile, right? That's forbearance. That's, okay, another definition is fortitude, which is like strength. It's strength of mind. It's when your body says, we're quitting, and your mind says, no, we're not. Your body says, well, we're just going to fall on the ground. The mind says, no, we're not. And your body, your mind makes your body go the last mile, and you finish, and then you fall on the ground, right? And, you know, breathe heavy for an hour or half an hour. Okay, so fortitude, long-suffering, patience, or we might say it, toughing it out. What's another way of saying tough it out? Grit your teeth. What's that? Louder? Suck it up. All right, there's a good one. Everybody knows what that means. Suck it up. All right. Okay, Paul indicates the theme of our personal hope scripture list in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, good report, virtue, praiseworthy, meditate on these things. That's why I'm saying make your own personal list of promises that Jesus has made to you if you overcome. And read a couple of those promises every day and put them in your head and go, not today maybe, unless I die today, but soon in the future God is going to fulfill the promises he made to me, and I am eagerly waiting and hoping for that day. And then when that day comes, I'll stop hoping because it'll be a reality, right? So if we meditate daily on the great promise from God, from Jesus, it will build our thinking stronger and stronger. Now, what will happen if we don't? What will happen if we drift away? Somebody cuts the rope to our anchor, and we drift away from God's ways and reading and studying the promises. What happens to us? We turn away from God. We've seen it. Most of us here could write down a handful of names of people who turned away. And Paul says in Scripture, he says, they heap to themselves teachers, and they turn their ears away from the truth, and they turn unto fables. But if you stop them and ask them, say, hey, aren't you leaving the truth for fables? They'll say, oh no, I'm learning new truth, better truth. But in God's eyes, it's turning away from the truth, it's going after fables. So building our hope stronger day by day provides fortitude and energy to stand strong in the face of our daily struggles. Anybody have daily struggles? Everybody has daily struggles. This is the way we can use earnest carefulness or entire confidence of hope as we cross that glorious finish line into God's